Happy Thursday, guys. Pastor Johnny here. I know a lot of y'all were sick or busy and couldn't make last night's life group. I just want you to know that we were missing y'all. We were praying for y'all, and y'all were definitely missed. That being said, I feel like we had some really good response from the couple people who were able to show up. So this was just a message I didn't want anyone to really miss out on. So I just want to go ahead and record it and send it to you guys so you can watch it on your own time. And that way, 2 weeks from now, nobody's left behind. But before we jump into this, something we shared last night, the youth group came together, our life group came together, and we lifted up the Moore family in prayer. And I'm going to ask you guys to do the exact same thing. They had a very important family member pass away. So please be praying for DeMarcus and Vicky and Jojo and Mia and little Michaela. Just lift that family up in prayer that the Lord be comforting them, bring them peace, and just overwhelm them with their presence in this moment. So I ask that you just join us in prayer over the amazing Moore family who are just so kind and giving to everyone around them, just a family full of positivity and love. So join me in prayer in that. That being said, we're going to jump into our lesson from last night. As you know, the series we've been in is called Fresh Fruit, where we're just refreshing the fruit of the Spirit in our own lives. So just for a review, we do this every week. The fruit of the Spirit, of course, is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. So we opened with a question just to kind of recap from last week where we talked about peace. And our question was, what grade would you give your peace report card over the last 2 weeks? Overall, I think mine personally was probably about an A, but there were definitely some trials in there, and we're going to get into some of that in here, where for about 24 hours, I'd probably give myself about an F+. I was definitely robbed of some peace in there, but the Lord worked on me and my wife pretty quickly and brought us out of that. Well, of course, this week we're looking at patience, but first I think we need to look at what is patience. Well, the dictionary says patience is being slow to speak and slow to anger, or to wait, to expect, to endure, even through hard times. Now, some translations, instead of the word patience, they use the term long suffering. So we're going to look at what does long suffering mean. Long suffering is patiently waiting through lasting or ongoing offense or hardship. You know, I'd probably guess that of all of the fruit of the Spirit, the different aspects of the fruit of the Spirit, patience probably has to be the least popular, if not the second least popular, behind self-control of them all. I mean, I'm sure everybody wants joy, everybody wants peace, everyone wants love, but patience? No, I don't know how many of us really want patience. Nobody wants to be patient. Nobody wants to wait. Us as humans, our nature is not to wait. We want what we want, and we want it now. So our first question that you can answer to yourself here, you feel free to share it in our group chat here. Who here would consider themselves to actually be a patient person? If you asked me, I think there's aspects of my life that I'm very patient on. I find myself easily being patient when it comes to waiting on the Lord, His timing with starting our family or to get a new job. That comes natural to me because I trust God way more than I trust me. Being patient with people, that's a whole nother thing. I don't trust people nearly as much as I trust God. And so sometimes people can really test my patience. The second question for this section is, what is something that tests your patience? I don't know about y'all, but it is stupidity while people are driving. I can't stand dumb drivers around me. They drive me insane. They boil my blood. Idiots on the road really test my patience. All right, so today we're going to look at two different aspects of patience. The first being practical patience. This is a type of patience we have to show on a daily basis. I've been learning about this firsthand for the past week or so. So as many of you know, my wife and I were foster parents, and one aspect of fostering is respite care. So foster parents like us might get a call from our agency, and they will say, hey, we have this other foster family. They have an emergency and have to go out of town, and they don't have enough time to get permission to take the foster kids. they need someone to watch them. So they get someone like us to do what they call respite care. It's for a set amount of time, it's temporary, and it's someone else's foster placement, but you're taking these kids who are in care. And man, we agreed to take a 6-month-old little girl and a 3-year-old little boy into respite care for 10 days. And there was a lot of information about the little boy's level of care and special needs that were not shared with us. Also, routines and tactics to help facilitate those special needs. And to say it's been testing our patience is putting it very lightly. It has been stressful. There are emotional outbursts and meltdowns that will last anywhere between half an hour and 2.5 hours, where there's just no reasoning or there's no stopping it. And there's also just no real purpose behind it. Sometimes it's, oh, you want these nuggets? Sure, I'll make you nuggets, and everything's good. And then you say, here, eat the nuggets I make you, and suddenly things are being thrown and fists are being thrown as well. And it's just, there's no off switch. And I work with kids, I get kids, and I've worked with a lot of special needs kids, and there's just never really an answer for how do we bring this back down. And it's been very hard, and definitely tested our patience. Luckily, I'm married to an amazing wife who's a former SPED teacher. She was a special ed teacher for 7 years, and she has more patience than I think she even realizes. And she also has a lot of tactics and techniques and ways to combat this type of behavior, and God bless her. The other thing is, this little boy doesn't have a man in the home, so he's a little intimidated by this big guy with a beard and a deep voice. So when he's happy, he likes me. But when he's having his emotional moments, he doesn't really want anything to do with me. So my poor wife has had to do all of the heavy lifting. And that's been very stressful. I mean, I get to hang out with the baby and play with him when he's happy, but Lori's carried the brunt of this placement. Like I said, it's been a lot. And through this process, I've learned that even with my passion of working with kids, which I've been doing for over 20 years now, and now fostering and working with special needs kids, and wanting forever kids of my own, I realize I don't know if I am made for being a permanent parent for a high-end special needs child. I don't know if I have the patience to do that my entire life, just to sit there and listen to a hyperventilating level of screaming and crying for 2 hours straight forever. In fact, if I'm being honest with you guys, within the first couple of days, I found myself saying to everyone I talked to about this, I can't wait for this week to be over. This week is going to be so long. I feel like it's never going to end. Sunday can't come fast enough. Then on top of that, Lori and I, we've been trying to have a bio baby, not instead of adopting through the foster system, but in addition to. And we've been unsuccessful for about a year now. And, Lori went in, she got some tests done. They said, hey, you're good to go. And they gave me a referral, her doctor did, to go and get some testing done on my end. So I went in and, we went to the lab, and they sent the results to the doctor's office, and I hadn't heard anything back in like 2 weeks. So I called and I said, hey, I did these tests and I haven't heard anything back. And I was just wondering if I had my results. And the lab said, well, we can't read your results. You have to call your doctor. And I said, well, I don't really have a doctor. He said, oh, the doctor that referred you. I said, well, the doctor that referred me was my wife's OB. I don't have an OB. I'm not their patient. And they said, well, just call them. They have the results. So I was like, all right. So here I am, a man calling an OB going, yeah, I want to call you guys about my test results. And they were like, okay, what's your date of birth? And I said, 2/20/85. And they were like, oh, well, we don't have you in our system. Of course you don't. I'm a dude. I don't have an OB. My wife is your patient. They said, okay, well, what's her date of birth? And every time I called, we went through that every single time. But finally they said, oh, we don't have your results yet. So I called back the lab, and they said, oh, we sent them on February 17th. Okay, well, that was 2 weeks ago. Y'all should have them. So I called them. They said, no, we don't have it. And I said, okay, well, they said they would resend it. Can you check again? They said, we still don't have it. Called back the lab. Do you guys have these? Did you send them over? And they said, yep, we sent them over this morning, 2 hours ago. So I called them again. They sent them 2 hours ago. Well, we don't have them. Well, this is a fax number that they said they sent it to. Oh, they faxed them. Yes. Okay, well, let us check. No, we still don't have it. Okay, I'm going to have them fax one more time. So finally they fax it one more time. They say, hey, we have it. All we need is for the doctor to review the results and we'll get back to you. I said, awesome. Now, this is a pretty stressful day that I'm trying to find out the answer to this because I have the numbers. I just don't know how to make heads or tails of them. But we had also found out that little Gianna, which you guys, Giselle, which you guys have been joining us in prayer to find out if we were going to get little Gigi or not. That was the same day we found out that for Giselle, they had picked another family. So I already had to deliver some bad news to my wife that day, and I really didn't want to have to deliver her bad news twice in one day. So I wanted a definitive answer before I said, well, these don't look good, but I don't really know. So I'm waiting, and they say, all right, well, we just need the doctor to review them, and we have them. And I said, all right. So fast forward to this past Tuesday, it had been a week since I last talked to them. And I called them back and I said, hey, my name's Johnny Harris. My wife's birthday is this, just so you can get me pulled up. And I said, about a week ago, you said the doctor needed to review the results and that you guys would get back to me, and I haven't heard anything back. And they said, well, the nurse is out. We'll send you to her voicemail and she'll call you back. And I had heard that 3 times prior and I had gotten 0 calls back. So in that moment, I kind of lost my patience. And I said to that young lady, I said, will she actually call me back this time? Because you've told me that before and I've gotten no call back. And she said, yes, sir. Oh, yeah, absolutely. She'll call you back. I said, yeah, I just don't believe you on that. And she said, well, tell you what, I'll write down a handwritten message. I'll personally hand it to her when she gets back from lunch. And I said, okay. And she said, and go ahead and leave a voicemail. I said, all right, well, how long will she be at lunch for? And she goes, she's been gone about 30 minutes, so about 30 more. I said, awesome. I'm going to my staff meeting. If I don't hear back from you all in 2 hours, I'm going to call you back. And she said, okay. And 2 hours went by. I hadn't heard anything, so I called back. And she said, yeah, the nurse is back. She had your message. She's just waiting on the doctor to review your results. Now I really lost my patience. And I said, yeah, well, that's funny. That's what you told me a week ago, is that you were waiting for the doctor to review the results. Why does it take her a week to look at one piece of paper? I said, well, she's with a client right now, a patient right now. I said, has she been with that patient for 7 straight days? She said, no, sir. She's just busy at the moment, but as soon as she reviews it, they'll call you back. And still being impatient, I said, all right, will that be in another week? And she said, I don't know. And I said, you know what, this isn't acceptable. Tell you what, if I don't hear back from them by the end of the day, you guys open at 8 a.m. tomorrow, I will be at your office at 7:55, waiting outside the door, and I'm going to stand in your lobby until someone reads me my results so I can tell my wife whether or not we can make a baby. Anyways, long story short, they ended up calling that night, and we got the news that we got. But I called my wife right after I got off the phone with them, and after I told her the story I just told y'all with a much more frustrated tone of voice, she's like, yeah, I feel you. That's really frustrating. So how's your lesson on patience coming for tomorrow night? That's smart aleck. Man, I kind of laughed it off and I said, I know, right? And laughed it off. We got off the phone and I came back to my office right here to work on the lesson that I was presenting at the time tomorrow night, but now last night. So I came in here to work on it, sat down at my desk, but boy, instead, the Lord decided to work on me. He brought me to probably the most well-known verse about patience. If you've ever been to a wedding, you've definitely heard it, but it hit me a little bit different here. It's from the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 13. It says, love is patient. It says, love is kind. It is not jealous. It is not conceited. It is not proud. And it is not arrogant. Man, that really humbled me. Because I've said for 3 years that we will love every child the Lord brings to our home through this foster and adoption process as if they're our own, whether it be for a moment or a lifetime. Yet here I am so annoyed and stressed out over this one kid that I have for 10 days that I'm literally counting down the days until he's gone, begging God to make this week go by as fast as possible. I said I loved every child the Lord brought to our home. Yet I'm so frustrated with these meltdowns that I can't wait for him to leave. Meaning that I'm not being patient with him in the moment or being patient with the situation. Yet just as we read, 2 Corinthians tells us that love is patient. Meaning if I'm not being patient with this boy, I'm not loving him. I'm unable to love him if I'm not able to be patient with him. That said, I know I don't have the patience for his level of care and needs for a forever basis, or even period on my own power. But as I preached a week and a half ago in Big Church, I have access to an endless source of power that I can plug into anytime. And the exact fruit that offers me, one of which happens to be patience. This means if I want to show this kid the love of Christ, then I need to show him the patience of Christ. One of the questions we asked at this point yesterday was, what is the time you felt like this? For instance, in your natural form, you would have been at your wit's end, but you chose to show patience so that you could show the love of God. The example we gave was perhaps maybe an elderly family member who perhaps is suffering from dementia, and they're like, oh, good to see you, Jeff. Actually, Grandma, Jeff is my dad. I'm Johnny, your grandson. And sure, it's annoying because you've done it 3 times that day, but you have that patience because you want to show them love and kindness. So you choose patience in that moment. Feel free to send that answer in the group text as well. I'm just going to slide right along here. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12, it says, but he said, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in your weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly of my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest on me. For the sake of Christ, I am content with weakness, insults, hardship, persecutions, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Because of Jesus. It didn't say that, but that's what it's saying. So while my patience isn't enough for all these things, his fruit is patience. That's what he has to offer. And when I'm weak, his strength is never ending. So I need to rely on his strength so I can have his patience. After all, look at how patient he is with us. I mean, as frustrating as it can be to have to act as this boy's father for a week, imagine how frustrating it is to be my heavenly Father all the time. Because I sin, I stumble, I fall short over and over and over again, yet he's there offering grace and forgiveness every single time. So if he can be that patient with me or with you, shouldn't we be that patient with each other? Okay, so that's practical patience. But now we're going to take a second and we're going to talk about a different type of patience. We're going to talk about spiritual patience, biblical patience. Earlier, we talked about how human nature is to want things right now. But God wants us to be willing to wait. Still, back to the fostering thing, this would be like, sure, we wanted to adopt Chrissy or pretty much any of the kids we've ever had, but God is asking us to wait. But waiting in the Spirit goes against the flesh. In fact, let's read what Galatians chapter 5 says, starting in verse 16. It says, so I say, walk in the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit is what is contrary to the flesh. They are in conflict with each other, so that you are not to do whatever you want. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. Question you can answer in the group text if you want. What jumped out to you about these verses in Galatians? So modern technology, I feel like, has taken away our need to wait, making our nature for now a reality in almost every aspect of our life. Let's take a look. For instance, we got TVs, tablets, phones, microwaves. Everything you want, you can have right now, like calling people. Used to, if you wanted to call somebody, you had to wait till you got home. And even then, you got home and called them, and if they weren't home, you had to wait and call them again. Wait for them to get home, call them again. And if they weren't home and they got a message to call you back, then you better hope that you were home and they called you back. Otherwise, we start this whole thing over again. Now, if you want to call someone, you reach into your pocket, you pull out your phone, you call them, or most likely you probably just send them a text. What about TV? When I was a kid, and I wanted to watch something on TV, I had to know what day it came on, what time it came on, what channel it came on. And if you missed it, you missed it. It wasn't going to happen. Now you just turn on, search what you want, watch it right then and there, no matter what time of day it is, no matter what show it is. Heck, you don't even have to be home. You can watch it on your tablet or your phone. What about the news? Our grandparents had to wait until tomorrow morning when they got the newspaper to find out what happened yesterday. Or our parents, they had to wait until the 10 o'clock news at the end of the day to find out what happened today. Now you just open your phone, and within a couple clicks, you know exactly what happened all around the world 30 seconds ago. Or when I was younger, which, this part wasn't even that long ago. If you wanted to post a picture on social media, you had to take a picture on your digital camera, which was separate from your phone. You had to go home, take out the memory card, put it in your computer, upload it to your computer, then download it onto a website and post it from there. So many steps. Now you just pull out your phone, click, boom, people are already liking it. Tech has made us so impatient. I'm sure you've been at a red light and maybe you're looking down at your phone for a second and then the light turns green, you don't see it, and then someone goes, after not even 3 seconds. We are so impatient, we can't even wait 3 seconds of being inconvenienced. Now, here's my big point on this. What about microwaves? Do you know we invented microwaves because we didn't want to wait to eat? We wanted to be able to eat right now. And I love microwaves. I use them all the time. I do a lot of meal prep, so a lot of my meals come out of microwaves. That's mostly because I also don't like doing dishes, so it saves me from having to cook. But I also love pizza. And sometimes I have some of those little microwave pizzas. Anybody else? Y'all like the microwave pizzas? Those little frozen pizzas. You just toss them in a microwave and boom, 90 seconds later, you're eating pizza. It's great. I don't know if y'all eat those, but that's me. But on the contrary, have you ever been to a pizza place? I'm not talking like Domino's or Pizza Hut or Cici's. I'm talking like a brick oven, gourmet, fancy pizza place. Now, when you go there, you don't get your pizza in 90 seconds. From the time you order until the time it's on your table, it's like 25 to 30 minutes. In comparison, it takes literally forever. I did the math earlier. I forgot to write it down, but 30 seconds versus 30 minutes is like 5,000 times longer. It's ridiculous. It may not be 5,000, but I did look it up. But they are also drastically different pizzas. The frozen pizza is small. It might be soggy, or if you microwave it too long, it might be a little too hard. It's okay tasting, maybe it's still cold in the middle, but that gourmet pizza, it is big, it is fresh, it is crispy on the crust, it is melty on the cheese, it is hot, it's cooked perfectly, and man, it is delicious. Now, both are still pizza. They're both still pizza. But when you compare the two, the gourmet brick oven pizza is always going to be so much better than any pizza you will ever pull out of your microwave. So if I offered you either one as an option right now, I said, hey, you can have this microwave pizza or you can have this brick oven pizza. You're going to pick the brick oven pizza every single time, even though you have to wait. And while waiting, you might be hungry. You might be uncomfortable. You might be unhappy. You maybe even grumpy, or as I get sometimes, you might be hangry. But if I offered you both, you'd still probably pick the brick oven fancy pizza every single time, even though you had to wait. And why? Because you know that pizza would be worth the wait. Because it's going to be so much better than the one you could have right now. This is no different than God making us wait. That's why he tells us to bear the fruit of patience, because what God has waiting for us always overshadows and outweighs in comparison anything we could get right now or on our own. He knows what he is prepping to cook for us in the kitchen of heaven, which he is so excited to bring us and serve us and show us his masterpiece. And he knows that it's far greater than what we're trying to instantly satisfy ourselves with in the microwave of life. But because we can't see what he's doing in the kitchen of heaven, we get impatient. And that proverbial microwave pizza of life starts to sound pretty tempting. This can relate to a lot of things in life: getting a job, or maybe getting the promotion you feel like you deserve, perhaps finding a relationship, finding your spouse, your children, either having them, finding them, raising them. So many factors can bring this up. I want to remind you in Jeremiah chapter 29, it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Plans to give you hope. Do you know it's hard to have hope when you already have everything you want? What is there to hope for? But your flesh doesn't want to wait, especially for things it can't see. We want what is tangible in front of us, and we want it right now. We know that the Bible tells us to live a godly life, repenting from sin so that we can spend eternity in heaven, which sounds great. But drinking too many mimosas at brunch is fun right here, right now, and we can see it, and we can touch it, and we can feel it. And frankly, if they're bottomless mimosas, we can really feel it. What about sexually? Even sexually, God gave us sex, and it's a pretty great gift. I'll tell you, it's probably one of the coolest gifts he gave us, but he gave it to us to share with our spouse. He tells us to wait for marriage so we don't cheapen it or harm it. Yet our flesh is so impatient that we so very often, we don't come even close to waiting. Because as we read, our spirit and our flesh are after two different things. They're in conflict with one another. They're doing battle. Our spirit wants heaven. It wants Jesus. It wants to be in the presence of God for all eternity. But my flesh wants what's here and what's now and what's pleasurable to the flesh in the moment. It doesn't care about my eternity. Do you know why your flesh doesn't care about your eternity? Because it's not going there with you. It's not going there with you. Or perhaps maybe we get impatient when we get a word from the Lord. And when it doesn't come right away, we get angry at God or disappointed with him because we didn't get what we wanted when we wanted it. Look at Abraham and Sarah. They were promised a baby. Even at their old age, it was already a long shot, but then they had to wait years. And they started to get impatient. So what did they do? They tried to do it on their own. But what happened? They only muddied it up all around them. They made an unnecessary mess in their lives, all because they couldn't just trust what the Lord said he was going to do and trust him to do it. Question again, you can ask this of yourself or share in the group text. When was a time your impatience only made things worse? Bible says in Psalms chapter 130, "I wait for the Lord with all my being. I wait, and I find hope in his word." I love when the Bible says stuff like that. Like in Ephesians 6:7, where it says, serve. It doesn't just say serve as though you're serving the Lord and not man. It says serve wholeheartedly, meaning with your entire heart, as though you're serving the Lord and not man. This says, I wait for the Lord with my whole being. I wait, and I find hope in his word. It is so easy to get impatient with God or the delivering of his promises, but we must first find joy in the fact that we have a promise from God to begin with. And then we can have peace knowing that God never breaks his promises. And having that joy and that peace together, we can find patience. Spiritual patience is waiting in God's place or moving at God's pace. Or in other words, patience is surrender to both God's control and God's timing. But God also uses patience to draw us closer to him, to grow us as Christians in our relationship with him, to help make us stronger in our faith and also strengthen us for the challenges in life. Like it says in Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31, "But those who wait on the Lord will find new strength. They will fly on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not grow weak." All from waiting on the Lord. Waiting on the promise of God with the hope of his word gives us strength. Plus, Jesus is the greatest example of patience and long suffering. He suffered so that we could be saved. And he patiently has been waiting for each and every one of us to call on his name and accept that gift. I love to work out. I love going to the gym. And I've realized while I was doing this study that patience is no different than muscle. It has to be exercised to grow. If we want to be more patient, we have to find ourselves in situations which challenges us to exercise our patience. And man, the last couple weeks in my life, God has proven that to me. God doesn't give us patience. He gives us situations to grow and exercise our patience. So if patience gives me hope and hope gives me strength, and together they give me God's promise, then God, give me patience. Guys, that was our lesson from last night. Again, we covered everyone who wasn't here in prayer. I ask that you continue to cover the Moore family in prayer, every single one of them. And we love you. We can't wait to see you in 2 more weeks. And you guys are just amazing. And it's an honor to be in this life group with y'all. Y'all have a great week, and we'll see you Sunday.